The latest tech,
I'm Alexa. I can answer your questions.
interviews,
And we are evolving, and we are seeing an amazing opportunity that is happening.
accessibility.
Accessibility is one of our core values. It's even a part of our mission statement.
This is Double Tap TV.
Why, hello there, and welcome to another episode of Double Tap TV, the technology show that is showing you how technology can benefit everyone, but especially the blind community. I am Mark Aflalo. By my side each and every single week is Stephen Scott, that blind guy himself. Stephen, this week we're diving into what's certainly today's technology, but it feels really futuristic.
Yes, we've talked before here on Double Tap TV about virtual reality and also augmented reality, as well as artificial intelligence. But what happens, Mark, when you put them all in a bowl and mix them all up and, see what happens? What does that look like inside a product, and what are the benefits?
Well, Stephen, I guess that product looks something like Microsoft HoloLens, which is what we're talking about on this week's episode. Now, Microsoft HoloLens was first introduced to the public, I guess, quote unquote, in pre-production in 2016. It offered developers an opportunity to experience the mixed reality headset for the first time. Now, since then, HoloLens has gone through a bunch of different iterations. And in 2019, it was at Mobile World Congress when they introduced HoloLens 2, which is the version of the headset that we see in use today. Now, the reason HoloLens is so interesting is because it doesn't take the traditional VR approach to things. It takes an augmented reality / mixed reality approach to head-mounted displays. Now, normally we talk about, amongst ourselves in the first segment, but we have a great conversation set up. And here to talk more is a director at Microsoft, Greg Sullivan. Greg, welcome to Double Tap TV. Tell me first, before we dive really into the details here, when did you first get involved in this technology? And how would you at Microsoft describe the technology in a way that an everyday person could really understand the purpose and what it does?
Well, I started working with the HoloLens team back in, I think, 2015, right around the initial announcement of HoloLens. And the way I would describe it is HoloLens is it's a computer. It's a Windows 10 computer that you wear on your head. And what it does is it projects holograms into the world around you, three-dimensional digital objects that you can interact with. So it's a computer that brings the digital world and the real world together in 3 dimensions right in front of your eyes.
That certainly is a simple description for sure.
I tried not to use any kind of technical words, but that's really at its simplest what it does. It's kind of we view this really as the beginning of what we call the kind of fourth wave of computing. And it's a little bit arbitrary, but if you think about how computers have evolved over the decades, we've had these kind of waves of the platforms. And we had initially, when the computers were invented, it was all concentrated, all the computing and the resources in a mainframe or a mini computer, and the high priests of IT managed access to that. And then we had the second wave, the personal computer revolution, where it became democratized, and we had, Microsoft's initial mission was to put a PC on every desk and in every home, and we kind of largely succeeded in that wave. And then we talk about the third wave, really, you could call the internet, but really the mobile wave of a new platform emerging in mobile phones and mobile devices. And we really think this fourth wave that we're on the cusp of is what we refer to as mixed reality. And it's that underlying idea of what happens when you bring the digital world and the physical world in 3 dimensions together and incorporate them in meaningful ways. And there's a whole bunch of kind of surprising, powerful insights and value that you can gain from that idea.
Greg, there's so many things I want to talk to you about today, but we need to explain one of the reasons that I reached out. Now, back in 2020, remember 2020, so long ago, when COVID-19 hit us really, really hard, one of the stories I followed was that of doctors using HoloLens to remotely assess and or see patients that were in isolation. Can you explain how that application came to be and how doctors actually used the HoloLens technology?
Yeah, well, we have been working with a variety of kind of medical providers, and this is one of the areas, one of the kind of vertical industries, if you will, where HoloLens the underlying idea of mixed reality is really applicable. It turns out when you have kind of complicated medical procedures and systems that are inherently three-dimensional, like your organs and the systems of your body, it really is beneficial to have that three-dimensional digital overlay. What in this case, though, that you're describing, it was actually a different aspect of HoloLens that really came into play, and was this idea of your having remote presence, having a device that gives you the ability to project your senses somewhere else, so it can feel like you are in a place where you're not physically standing. And what that benefit does, obviously, in terms of a COVID-19 world, is it enables a doctor to interact with patients or other caregivers in a way that doesn't require them to be physically together, increasing the risk of infection and so forth. So the ability to have HoloLens take its sensors and enable a doctor to feel like they're standing in front of a patient, evaluating that patient and interacting with them, and get all of the information, again, feel like you're actually present, but not expose yourself to infection. It was obviously a really advantageous aspect of this underlying technology. And if you kind of generalize that idea, it's one of the more profound, valuable aspects of this technology, and kind of what I would refer to as the low-hanging fruit in some respects of mixed reality, where it's really simple to say, look, if I put this device on my head and connect with you remotely, I can share the experience that I'm having, and we can collaborate in a way that we couldn't before. So the doctors were using this to enable them to interact with people without getting infected. But in general, the idea of being able to place yourself virtually in a way that you can't physically be, is the underlying powerful proposition that is at play here. And that general area of kind of remote assistance and knowledge transfer is one of the most significant uses today of mixed reality technology in general. And so it's no surprise that folks like doctors and the King's College and other places are using HoloLens to give them these insights, but also in a COVID world to protect them from infection.
Like I said, Greg, we have lots of questions for you, so you're going to stick around, hopefully, the entire show. And I'm sure Stephen is sitting there with a list of questions around accessibility and how this technology might work for the blind community. Now, I think we're all keen to know the answers to those questions. So let's take a short break and come back with Greg Sullivan, Director of Mixed Reality at Microsoft. Now, if you've got a question at home that you want us to ask to Microsoft, let us know. Our email address is feedback@ami.ca. You can also reach out on Twitter. Just follow us. It is @DoubleTapCanada. And if you ask us a question, use that hashtag, which is AskDoubleTap, and we will definitely get to those, obviously not on this week's show. And on Instagram, you can reach out. It is @DoubleTap.online. So stick around. Greg Sullivan is not going anywhere. We'll be back in just a moment here on Double Tap TV.
For more great Double Tap TV content, visit ami.ca/doubletap. This is Double Tap TV.
We are back on Double Tap TV. Thank you guys so much for being here. As I alluded to before the break, if you want to get involved, it's feedback@ami.ca. Of course, on Twitter, follow us @DoubleTapCanada and use that hashtag, which is AskDoubleTap, and we'll get to your questions. And of course, on Instagram now, it is @DoubleTap.online. I am Mark Aflalo, and by my side each and every single week is Stephen Scott. We are in conversation with Greg Sullivan, the Director of Mixed Reality over at Microsoft. Now, Greg, we talked about it this week with the new HoloLens technology and the way it's changing the way people across all industries can work. Now, at Ignite, Microsoft Developers Conference, you guys introduced a new way of using HoloLens that was called Microsoft Mesh. It's a way for people to interact remotely with colleagues, even family and friends, that uses a combination of HoloLens technology and the Microsoft Cloud. Could you explain how this works?
With HoloLens 2 that we launched in late 2019, we really extended that idea of this device that could project holograms in front of you and let you interact with them, to connect it to the cloud. And we knew that, for example, this HoloLens is a powerful computer, but it is a mobile device. It has essentially a smartphone chipset in it. And so the graphics power of this device is about the same as your smartphone. But what if I ask this device to render a 100 million polygon CAD file of a truck engine or a spaceship? The graphics power of this device means that it would take a long, long time to actually render that complicated graphic. So what we did with the introduction of HoloLens 2, we introduced a bunch of cloud services, including Azure Remote Rendering, that can take that complicated computational graphics file, render the image in the cloud with all of the vast GPU resources that we have in the compute resources in the cloud, and then send the resulting image file down to this device that can display it and manipulate it without having to render it. So that was what we did with HoloLens 2. And then it set us up for Ignite announcement that you referred to is we connect a bunch of these pieces. You have a device that can mix realities in your world. You have a cloud service that can enable us to share and collaborate in these experiences. We can fix the location of a hologram. I can place a hologram here in my home, and you could collaborate and interact with it from where you're sitting, halfway across the world. So this what Mesh does is it's a platform for immersive shared experiences. And this is really the point at which, you mentioned the Ignite announcement. That was the point at which we really realized some of the broader vision that we've had. Because HoloLens was always a really unique and breakthrough device in terms of what it can do by itself. But this really gets exciting when we start to incorporate others, not just others wearing a HoloLens, but anyone with a smartphone or a PC or a Mac. These experiences, these shared immersive experiences, are going to be available across a range of devices.
And what a perfect segue into my line of questioning here, Greg. Accessibility is a big mission at Microsoft, as we know, and we help promote all the time. About a year ago, I read an article about HoloLens being used to teach children with low vision how to navigate the world. How would HoloLens help that process? How does all that work?
Yeah, this is an area where we've been doing some research. I think one of the inherent challenges that we have with conveying holograms, as you well know, there are tools for kind of the flat screen applications that have done a good job of with screen readers and with other assistive technologies that have made some of this stuff much more accessible. With such a visual medium as a holographic computer, there are challenges in conveying that. But one of the exciting things is we're actually using HoloLens to look at ways that we can use this technology to assist blind or visually impaired folks in a lot of ways. We had a Microsoft research project called Project Tokyo that used HoloLens to enable blind or low vision folks to participate in conversations and to determine to use audio cues, use the sensors in the HoloLens, in the cameras and the depth cameras, and audio cues to let the wearer know which person was talking to them, or even things like this person is trying to make eye contact with you. And there are little audio cues. So that the benefits that we get when we have a device, a computer that can begin to understand and perceive its environment, we now have the ability to kind of transfer those capabilities to the user in some cases. So for example, we have some systems with HoloLens that we're developing that will help folks with low vision navigate through a crowded mall, for example, with audio cues for navigation. So it's a challenge to fully to map and translate and to make all of the full rich experiences of the kind of volumetric computing and the visual aspects available. But there are also other things that we can do with the sensors in particular in HoloLens 2 to enable folks to have experiences that they otherwise would not. And so we're thinking long and hard about that and investing heavily in what we can do to make this technology accessible for everyone. Because back to our mission statement, one of the things that is explicit about our mission statement is that we are in business to enable everyone to achieve more, and we talk about everyone on the planet. In fact, I think our CEO in particular was interested in that language because of the fact that we want to make sure that our technologies can democratize and be used by everyone. And so that's a big part of what we're thinking about with HoloLens 2 as well.
It's interesting when you think about it. The applications we all want as blind people ultimately are the same as everyone else wants, but it's the delivery of the information that has to be slightly different. Audio instead of visual, for example. So I guess considering where we are with technology today, many blind people can be hopeful that kit like HoloLens will work for them too.
No, I think you're exactly right. I think you're exactly right. And you just touched on another concept here that I think is important to note, and that is that assistive technologies are bidirectional. We kind of, you well know this. People think about accessibility as a thing that is done for a community, but what we often lose sight of, the fact is that the value goes in both directions. And I am reminded of this every time I use my electronic toothbrush, which was a device designed initially as an assistive, accessible technology, but now one that we all use and enjoy. And I think you just referred to another example where something that, while initially developed to be an assistive technology, there are two directions on that road, and the benefits can flow both ways. And I think that's something that's good for us to keep in mind.
Greg, what other areas of disability and accessibility could HoloLens impact?
Yeah, I think we're looking, there are a whole bunch of really interesting, not just assistive technologies, as I've described for, low vision users wearing HoloLens to help better engage in group conversation, but also things like therapies, treating post-traumatic stress disorder, working with folks who have severe autism. Virtual reality and immersive technologies have been shown to be very therapeutic and to have great value in some of these scenarios. So yeah, we're learning. Again, I think back to that laser analogies. We've invented these tools, and we're now at the point where we're starting to appreciate all of the ways that we can use them and all the value that they truly can bring.
Greg, we don't normally keep our guests for an entire show, so I'm glad that you're going to stick around with us. We've got lots more questions for you about this incredible technology. And don't forget, you guys at home, you can join the conversation as well. Email us at feedback@ami.ca. You can drop us a message on social media. On Twitter, it's @DoubleTapCanada. And use that hashtag, which is #DoubleTap. Of course, Facebook, and now on Instagram, it is @doubletap.online. More from Greg Sullivan from Microsoft coming up next here on Double Tap TV. Stick around.
Love Double Tap TV? Listen to AMI Audio for Double Tap Canada every Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern for news and reviews on everything tech. This is Double Tap TV.
Welcome back to Double Tap TV. I am Mark Aflalo with Stephen Scott by my side. We are in conversation with the director of mixed reality over at Microsoft. What a great title. Greg Sullivan. Greg, we've learned so much already from you this week in terms of this amazing technology we call HoloLens. But can I ask you a question? What are some of the more far-fetched ideas that you've seen come to life using the HoloLens tech?
Yeah, well, there's been a few. I mean, we've seen, again, just a wide array, a lot of the kind of maybe predictable ones in particular around the kind of these remote assist and training scenarios that are pretty obvious. One of the ones that was really caught my attention was there was a dance troupe in New York who used HoloLens and incorporated digital dancers and artwork into their performance. And so we're starting to see a lot more outside of the kind of strict commercial space, but in a lot more interesting like art and performance ways that we didn't predict. HoloLens being used to enable great, cool new experiences at places like Cirque du Soleil. So the idea of HoloLens being used to experience dance and art and music was not something that I would have predicted, but we're seeing a whole bunch of really interesting innovation there. So, and again, this is like turning this tool over to the creatives and standing back and letting them have their way and do exciting stuff with it. And that's kind of the point where we're at now.
Okay, Greg, I've got a good one for you here. There's a dream of augmented reality glasses that seems to be further proliferated thanks to visual effects teams who create, like the heads-up display in Iron Man, for example, or Tony Stark's glasses in the Marvel anthologies. That tech seemed so insane when we first saw it over 10 years ago. But that really has come to life here, doesn't it?
Yeah, I think this is a case of maybe life imitating art, imitating life. The ideas have been understood, and the benefits. I think one of the things that we don't appreciate because of the fact that we've been using the digital world has enabled us to do amazing things as a species, right? You and I are having a conversation clear across the world, and we can share documents, and so technology has done some incredible things for us. But again, we are really just at the beginning of this next wave, and so as we look ahead at what's coming, we can't even really fully imagine some of the things that are going to be enabled by these new technologies. But I think one thing that is true is that we've been kind of used to looking at the digital universe through these flat rectangles of glass. And we don't even consider the constraints that kind of puts us under. Is like the digital world is a place where we go to this piece of glass to experience. And it's a rectangle, and I go there, and that's the digital world. What we're saying now is let's liberate the digital world from the constraints of that rectangular piece of glass, and let's bring it into the real world with you. And what are the kinds of things that can happen? Well, instead of just looking at a picture of the couch, I could bring a digital model of the couch into my room, and I could see if it actually will fit in the space that I want it. So the idea, the underlying notion of bringing the digital world into the real world is something that we're going to have to get our heads around a little bit, and it'll involve in the near term kind of new form factors and devices. But over the long term, it will just be how we compute.
Greg, it's been amazing having you on the show today and discussing the world of HoloLens. I honestly can't wait to try it out myself. I hope that we get that in our hands someday. No hints and no nothing intended there. Greg Sullivan, Director of Mixed Reality over at Microsoft, thank you so much for being here on Double Tap TV. Stephen, we've learned a lot this week, have we not? It's like information overload a little bit.
I'm so glad we brought Greg on for the entire show. He had so much to share with us. And I think we've had a glimpse into the future of computing here. I really love this idea of our digital world expanding beyond the rectangle screen, as Greg puts it, and brings our digital life out into the open. Just imagine the possibilities. Mark, you could have your mother-in-law in front of you all the time, right there in your front room.
Yeah, I'm going to just move on and not address that one, okay? Guys, it's been a great show this week. If you've got any questions, as you do each and every single week, please do reach out and we'll get them to Microsoft. Our email address is feedback@ami.ca. Of course, you can reach out on Twitter @DoubleTapCanada. Use the hashtag, which is AskDoubleTap. On Facebook or Instagram, it is @DoubleTap.online. On behalf of Greg Sullivan and Stephen Scott, I am Mark Aflalo. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll catch you again on our next episode of Double Tap TV.
For more great Double Tap TV content, visit ami.ca/doubletap. Hosted by Mark Aflalo and Stephen Scott. Editing, Will Attar. Production assistants, Wendy Kaufman. Content review, Zachary Aflalo. Social media, Andy Wynn. Segment producer, Sean Priest. Voiceover, Anna Vicino. Integrated Described Video Specialist, Ron Rickford. Coordinating producer, Jennifer Johnson. Director, Production, Karen Nye. Director, Programming, Brian Perdue. VP Content Development and Programming, John Melville. President and CEO, David Arrington. Copyright 2021, Accessible Media, Inc.